I would totally play a crossover game with all of the big heroes from all of the big games.
So what did we learn
You'll have
today?
to tell me what we learned from today.
We're going to see the best things that the Bethesda group has been good at in the past. We're going to see more of that stuff floating over to other companies within the umbrella of Microsoft. So we may end up seeing, and this is going to be one of the key things that I'm going to be looking out for, and we won't really know where this goes until probably about 2 or 3 years into this experiment. How much more modding is going to be embraced on the in the Microsoft umbrella? Will it become a bigger part of what they do, or will it become a smaller part of what they do? And I think it's going to be, obviously, I can say with certainty, it's going to be one of those two things, right? It's either going to be embraced more or embraced less.
Really, is there a third option?
There's not really a third option. It's going to stay exactly as it is right now. No, not really. So it's a little bit of a cop-out, but we won't know until they start showing off some of their new stuff.
Do you think there will be motivation for Microsoft to invest in modding tools for the Xbox, or at least an easier way to implement mods on the Xbox?
No, they have an easy way of implementing mods on the Xbox. You can mod a ton of stuff in and port it into the Microsoft scenario. Now you still have to do that via that store thing, but so they don't need more tools. What they need is a wider availability, right? That's what they need. They need a better, bigger system in which people can do more mods. Now, again, this comes at kind of a catch-22. Is like, you want to give people more freedom to upload mods, more free to play mods, instead of paid mods. I think you want to do that, but at the same time, if you do that, you do introduce the option for having people flood the market with programs that can potentially screw with people or steal stuff from them. So that is of course a major concern, right? Is the safety factor of that. It could be that it gets kind of pushed to the back burner and we don't see a lot of modding for games going forward. But I think that would be, I don't think that's going to be a thing. I think they're going to embrace mods going forward because it's such a crucial part of their DNA, and so many of the big people there understand that, right? Like Todd understands that, and he's now more in charge than ever before. So I would say, yeah, that's probably an acceptable thing. The other thing that they mentioned there is that they are going to continue to have Bethesda focused big events, big conventions, and that kind of thing. They really alluded to that quite heavily with the Quake Con and with a bunch of other things.
It would fly in the face of their whole it's all about the fans first. If they took away those cultural things that the fans are already into, it would really fly in the face of that for sure. That's
now announcements, as the announcements go and as things go that are important to note. They did mention how there's going to be even more interconnected cooperation between all Microsoft studios now. And I think when you hear that, I think this reinforces what I'm hearing, which is, again, I can't reiterate how much this is a rumor and how far away this is from being completed. The idea of having a Fallout New Vegas produced by Obsidian.
Mm-hmm.
This I think it wasn't obvious, it was not directly keyed into, but the fact that they're saying that they're welcoming and they're interested in more crossovers and more exchanging of ideas, exchanging of IPs, exchanging of stuff to really flush out their content. I have got to believe that at some point in the future, we have to see a Master Chief and Doomslayer. I mean, it's a match made in heaven. I can see it now. They they're both, drop out of the sky. They land on the ground, gigantic explosion. They stand up, they look at each other. They're flexing each other's muscle, or not each other's muscle. They're flexing muscles, and then they run towards each other.
Maybe each other's
muscles.
muscles.
Full of daisies with flowers blowing in the wind, and there's the music as they're running, and they give each other a hug as a swarm of aliens and demonic creatures come pouring over the hills on both sides, and it's coming, guys, it's coming.
I think Saib is still loopy from the dental work.
Seriously, that's obviously a joke, but no, the general idea that some of their studios are going to start working on other projects that were in other hands of other companies, and then vice versa. This seemed to be alluded to in more than one occasion there. Again, fairly subtly, but to the point where it's like, that's big stuff. So as far as announcements go, it's clear that they have a lot of announcements to do, which is why they said this summer they want to do a big announcement, because they have a lot of stuff that they want to talk about. ZeniMax Online has made it clear that they are working on a new project. Considering that they specialize in MMOs, I think we can see that this is going to be an MMO, and I think we've got, I think something's coming down the pipeline there.
Is that something that the gaming public is hungry for? Is another Bethesda MMO? That's my.
It's not a Bethesda MMO. It's a ZeniMax MMO. So that MMO could be any of the IPs that ZeniMax had access to up before the Switch. Because it's clear that they have been working on it for a while now. So if they've been working on it a while, then we can assume that it was obviously one of the IPs that was owned pre-merger. So we're pick the list of current MMO or current IPs that Bethesda owned up until yesterday exclusively, and one of them is getting an MMO experience.
Interesting. And you said something else very interesting earlier on as well about Todd apologizing for the Fallout 76 debacle.
He basically said that they messed up royally on it, and that there wasn't any aspect of that game that they didn't screw up.
When that game launched, the litany of issues we had, and we let a lot of people down, and well, there was very little we didn't screw up, honestly.
That's him admitting that they royally screwed up, and that there wasn't any, there wasn't very much in that game that they hadn't completely, blundered.
So an admission of big blunders, at least. Not so much an apology, but that's, I think, as close to an apology as you can get in a situation like this. Was definitely hoping for more from this event. I was not expecting them to be sitting down and saying, hey, this is day one when we can officially work together. Because, granted, the deal hadn't been approved. I would have thought some sort of collaboration or some sort of planning would have gone into the past few months in which they were getting prepared for this being finalized, because they were simply talking about it as if it were finalized. Not sure what could have come up that would have interrupted this deal from happening. It had to be approved by regulating bodies, but really it's somewhat disappointing that they couldn't show us anything. Still nothing from Starfield. I think a peek at Starfield would have somewhat redeemed.
I think, as I said before, I think this indicates that what we are seeing now is we will not be seeing anything that's not ready, and that especially when it comes to Todd, he is going to have even more of an ability than now, where I don't think we're going to get anything on these games until they're almost ready to go.
Well,
we're talking a month or less of PR when it comes to Bethesda games in the future.
So that could be a very good thing. If we read into what they didn't show us a bunch of unfinished games and empty promises. So perhaps that's a good thing. Sword Sister's asking, so Saib, do you think this means Todd rules the show now?
When it comes to the Bethesda wing, so the immediate Bethesda wing and all the whatever he covers, which we don't know if he covers how much of everything that he does cover, how much of it appears that he is going to be in charge of a lot. How many of those studios that means or that translates to, we don't know yet. but I think that he is basically going to be running pretty much everything in that regard.
If that's true, that'll give us the opportunity to separate out his management style from what was being dictated down to him from ZeniMax previously.
Mm-hmm.